Namaste everyone. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvasvaha Tatsavitra Vargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahna Bhavatu Sahna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In this class we are trying to understand the conversation between a young boy Nachiketa and Lord of Death Yamaraj. And name of this Upanishad is Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad. Okay. And the way the story was, Nachiketa, he goes to Yamaraj. He waits there for 3 days, 3 nights, without any food, without any water, standing outside. When Lord of Death came, he realized that the big mistake has been made. So he said, okay, I will give you 3 boons. 3 boons. So Nachiketa accepts those boons. And let's see what he is asking. So the very first boon is in this verse number 10. Shant sankalpaha sumnaha yatha syat veet manyo gotamaha ma abhi mrityoho tvat prasrishtam ma abhivedat pratit etat tryanam pratmam varanavrine. Shant sankalpaha, be pacified. Sumanaha, see suman, kind, be kind. Yatha syat, may be, or let him. Veet manyu, free from anger. Gotama, that is a Nachiketa's father's name, Gautam. Ma means me, abhi means towards, mrityo, oh death. Tvat, by you, prasrishtam, sent away. Mami, abhi vadet, great. Pratit, recognize me. Etat means this. Treya naam, of the 3 boons. Prathmam, the first. Varam, the boon. Vrine, I choose. So Nachiketa said, O Lord of Death, as the first of the 3 boons, I choose that Gautam, my father, be pacified, peaceful, be kind, and free from anger towards me, and that he may recognize me and greet me when I am sent away by you. He understands that he's just visiting the Lord of Death. So he's going to go back. So he says, when I go back, I want to use one of my 3 boons, the very first one, in favor of my father. This is the character and the temperament of that young boy. This action itself throws a lot of glorious light on his personality. Even though the father was angry with him, but first and foremost, as a dutiful son, the very first boon he is utilizing in bringing peace and joy in the heart of his father. He wants his father to enjoy comfortable nights without any regret that he got angry and he sent his son to death. So it's a very loving consideration for the parents. This is what we should have too. Parents or guardians, they bring us up, they sacrifice so much for us, and often we look at only the faults in them. To achieve this kind of a perfection, a sadhak must begin with the consideration and love, selflessness, all giving very first towards the parents. If it weren't for the parents, we won't be here. That's why parents are considered the Brahma of this body, creator of this body. So we owe it to them. So this was a character of Nachiketa. He's showing us our ideal duty to those who created us, and in their old age, they depend upon us. This should always be in the back of our mind. Yatha purustat bhavitaha pratit odalaki aruni mat prasrishtaha sukham ratri shayata vitmanyu tvam the drishivan mrityu mukhat pramuktam. So you can see that this Sanskrit is little different than the Bhaj Govindam Sanskrit, Bhagavad Gita Sanskrit. The language changes with the time. Okay? And these are not the shloks. Okay, this is not a chand. So writing is different. So yatha means as purustat, before, bhavita will be, pratit will recognize, odalaki arune. Odalaki is the name of, see, actually, if you pay attention, there are 4 names for Nachiketa's father. Some people have many names, and he has 4 names too. Aruni was his grandfather's name, so son of Arun. Aruni. Mat means from me, prasrishtaha, released. Sukham, peacefully, ratri, nights. Shayata, will sleep. Vit manyu, free from anger. Tvam, you, the drishivan, when he sees mrityu mukhat, from the jaws of death. Pramuktam, released. Through my favor, so Lord of Death is saying to Nachiketa, Adulaki, Aruni, your father, will recognize you and will be possessed of affection as before. When he sees you released from the mouth of death, will lose his temper. That means he won't be angry anymore. So will lose his anger and will sleep peacefully at night. So he won't be angry. See, when we are angry, when we are disturbed, when we are restless, we cannot sleep at night. That is one of the indication when people cannot sleep at night. Okay, so anger is a mental disturbance. So he says your father will be blessed with this. So in this particular verse, Lord of Death is blessing the boy with the fulfillment of his demands in all details. He says, whatever you asked for, your father will have that. Okay. So Gautam is, see, 4 names of his father: Gautam, Adulaki, Arune, and Vajrashva. The very first name which we saw in the first verse, Vajrashva. Now let's look at the second boon. What does he ask for? Swarge loke na bhayam kinchin asti na tatra tvam na jarya vibheti ubhe tirtvaha Ashnaya pipase, yokatigo modte swarag loke. Swarag loke, in heaven. No bhayam, no fear. Kinchan, whatsoever. Asti means there is. No means not. Tatra there. Tvam, you are. No means not. Jarya, old age. Be bhetihi, they fear. Ubhe, both. Tirtavaha, having crossed. Ashnaya, hunger. Pipase, thirst. Shokatiko, above grief. Modate, rejoices. Swaragloke, in the heaven. So Nachiketa is saying, in heaven, there is no fear whatsoever. You are not there, O death. Nor do they fear the inhabitants of heaven, that means the devatas, nor do they fear old age there. See, in this Mrityu Lok, we become old and we are always afraid of getting old. In Swarag Lok, there's no old age. Having crossed both hunger and thirst, one rejoices in heaven. Being above grief, they don't have a grief and they don't have a hunger, they don't have a thirst, they don't get old, they don't have these kind of fears there. So in order to ask the second boon, which Yamraj promised him, he is glorifying the life in the higher plane of consciousness, which we call heavens. So comparatively without fear, it's not that people can live there endlessly. So it's like a relatively, he is saying that people live there for a longer time. You are not there. In this mortal world, we have a limited amount of time. In heaven, the lives are longer. So in that sense, he is saying, so not in an absolute sense, but in a relative sense. See, over here on the earth, we have 5 stages to live through in life: birth, childhood, youth, old age, and death. But in heaven, they say, there's no old age, and the death is not that often over there. So only the first 3, birth, childhood, youth, everybody is youthful over there. So none of the pains of the old age or death, they don't have the agonies of hunger and thirst. We'll see that Nachiketa is not asking this boon for himself. He knows that majority of the people, they are looking for abode in the heaven. So he's asking this Lord of Death, can you show me, can you tell me some of the ways where people want to go to a heavenly abode, how can they go there? So the first boon was he used for his father, and the second boon he's using it for a general public. He wants Yamraj to explain this to him. Satvam agnim swargyam adhyeshi mrityoho prabhuhi tam shraddhanaye maham swaragloka amritvam bhajante etat dvitiyen vrine vrena. So Nachiketa is saying, Sa means that, Tvam means you, Agnim, the fire, the yagya, the sacrifice. Swargyam, that leads to heaven. That kind of a sacrifice which leads to heaven. Adhyeshi. Adhyeshi means to know. Mrityo, oh death. Prabhuhi, explain. Tam means that. Shraddhanai, full of faith. Maham, to me. Swargalokaha, those who aim at the attainment of heaven. Okay. And majority of the people, they want to they do good deeds so that we can enjoy the future. That's a heavenly pleasure. Okay, so that's what he says, Swargaloka. Amritvam, immortality, bhajante, attain. Etat, this. This means the secret of the sacrificial fire. Dvityen, by the second. Vrine, I pray for. Varen, by the boon. O death, you know the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven. Let me tell you, there are more than 400 different kinds of yajnas mentioned in our Vedas. Okay. So there's a Sakam yajna and Nishkam yajna also. So this is a Sakam yajna, but he knows that most of the people want that. So he says, oh death, you know the fire sacrifice which leads to heaven. Explain that to me. Why? I am full of faith that fire by which those who aim at the attainment of heaven attain immortality. I pray for this as my second boon. So some people just want that. He says, can you explain that for their benefit? Okay. Those who aim at the attainment of heaven. So he is asking of Lord Death, the second of his boon. He is dedicating his entire spiritual, religious work for the benefit of others. He says there are yajna. I have heard that yajnas are like that. So that means he was well versed of the Vedas also. So in the name of those ignorant people, because ignorant people think that is immortality. Swargaloka amritam bhajante. So the significance over here is that those people think that is immortal, even though that is not. But the ignorance in those people, but Nachiketa is cashing in the second boon, asking the Lord of Death to give the secret knowledge regarding the Karma Kand. This is called a Karma Kand in the Vedas. See, the Upanishads are about the Gyan Kand. And that's why this Karma Kand portion, even though Lord of Death explained it to Nachiketa, there's no detail of this in this scripture, because this is a Gyan Kand. It's a knowledge. Okay. So sacrificing the second of his boons in a spirit of dedication to the world at large. That's what we see over here. This is a true seeker. Okay. See, we all want our own liberation, but we have certain duties also. We have duties towards our parents, duties towards these elemental forces, duties towards a society. So this is one of the duties. This young boy thought that I have this duty because I see more and more people want to attain the heavenly abode and they don't know the right way of creating that kind of a merit. And I will ask the Lord of Death personally. Unless a person has practiced universal love sufficiently for long, you really cannot expand fully. So this kind of a giving, helping, doing your duties, it brings the expansion in your personality. Instead of just going inward and narrowing yourself, you got to learn how to expand. So this is the point he's emphasizing. It's a necessary prerequisite actually for a successful seeker. Help others. That's where the seva comes. That's where the duties are mentioned. So So Nachiketa is requesting the Lord of Death to initiate him into the secret of the rituals by which the performer can reach the heavenly abode. Heavenly abode. So remember, this immortality word over here is in a relative sense. Compared to the immortality when we talk about Amritvam, the eternal. Okay. So immortality. Let's look at verse number 14. Prate brvimi tat ume nibodha swargayam agnim nachiketah prajanan anant lokapitam atho pratishtham vidhitvam etam nihitam guhyayam. Pra means well, te means to you. Brvimi, I will tell. So who is speaking now? Lord of Death. Tat means that, U means verily. Me, from me, nibodh, learn. Swargayam, that leads to heaven. Agnim, the fire sacrifice, the yajna. Nachiketa, O Nachiketa. Prajanan, well knowing. Anant lokapitam means to the attainment of eternal heaven. Atha means now or and. Pratishtham, support of the universe. Vidhi, no. Tvam means you. Etam, this. Nihitam, seated. Guhyayam, in the cavity. That means in the cavity of the heart of the learned. Okay, nihitam guhyayam. I know well the fire sacrifice, O Nachiketa, which leads to heaven, and I will tell it to you. Learn it from me. Know that it is the means of attainment of eternal heaven, and also the support of the universe, and is seated in the cavity of the heart of the learned. So Lord of Death is fulfilling this wish of this young boy. He's blessing him with this second boon, which is requested by Nachiketa. One thing is that instructions, these deep instructions of something so important, always given directly from a guru to the disciple. So it's like a direct learning. But to learn something like this, you need acute intelligence, an extra capacity to concentrate on the part of the student. And that's what we read between the lines over here. He says, I will tell you well. Attend to me, learn it from me. And then remember it also. Nihitam guhyayam. It's not just learning something and then forgetting. It's not superficially learning. It's putting the roots in your heart also. And the yajna, all these rituals are with the fire. That is the basis of this Vedic rituals. Fire is a support of the universe. In the macrocosmic aspect, as a Virat, and even this our microcosmic, there is a Agni inside us too. That's why the yogis, they came up with a lot of techniques to keep this Agni, whether it's a Jatragni or whether it's a the warmth in this body through certain pranayams, they just kept it alive in the form of yogic techniques. Okay, so yajna word is a very key word in this scripture over here. So nihitam guhyayam, That's a very key word in this verse. So hidden in the cave of the heart. So understand it properly. So it's a very familiar phrase in the Upanishad. Nihitam guhyayam. You will see that in other Upanishads also. So they are just declaring it like that. Nihitam guhyayam. So then he says, Lokadim agnim tam uvach tasmeya ishtakaha yavati va yatha va sacha api tat pratyavadat yatho uktam ath asya mrityu punha ev aha tushtaha. Lokadim, the source of the world. Agnim, fire. It could be fire, it could be a sacrifice. Even when Brahma created this, he could not create this universe. Then this message came to him from the Brahma. Tap, tap, tap. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is needed. So that's what this Agnim, the fire sacrifice. Tam means that, Uvach means said, Tasmei, to him, Nachiketa. Ya means what? Ishtaka, bricks. Yavati, how many? Va means or, Yatha, and how. Second line, Sa means he, Cha means and, Api also, Tat means that, Pratyavadat, repeated back. Yatha uktam, as explained. At means so, Asya, at this, Mrityu, that's for Lord of Death, Yamraj. Punha, again, Ev means even. Ah, said, Tushtaha, being pleased. Yam then explained to him that fire sacrifice. The source of the worlds. What class of bricks are required for the altar? How many? And how they are to be placed? And Nachiketa repeated back to the teacher all, as explained. Then Yamraj, being pleased at this, said again. It is a natural instinct with every teacher to feel extremely happy towards a student who is smartly grasping the lessons at the first hearing. And this is what's happening over here. In all the detail he gave to Nachiketa, Nachiketa repeated it back to Yamraj. So the teacher was fully satisfied and fulfilled. So as I said earlier, the explanation of this sacrifice is not given in this Upanishad. Okay, because this is not the purpose of this Upanishad. So this is a Gyan Kand. The details of this is definitely in the Vedas, Yajurved. There are a lot of details about all this. That's why I was telling you there are about 400 different kinds of yajnas, with special names to all of them. But when Yamraj told Nachiketa, he memorized, he remembered, and he could repeat it back. Okay, so reporting the lesson at the end of the instruction. See, that's why we have a tests also these days in schools. Whatever we learn, we are supposed to give it back. Tell the teacher how much do we really know. So what happens is the Lord of Death is so happy with him. He says, I'm going to give you another boon because I'm so pleased with you. And that's what's mentioned in the next verse, verse number 16. Tam abravit priyamanah mahatma varam tav ihi adhye dadami bhuya tav ep namnah bhavita ayam agni sankriyam cha imam anek rupam grihash. Tam means him. Him means Nachiketa over here. Abravit said. Priyamanaha, being delighted. Mahatma. Varam, boon. Tav means to you. Ih, here. Adhe, now. Dadame, I give her. I grant. Bhuyaha, additional. Tav, you. Ev, verily. Nam naha, by name. Bhavita, shall be. I am this Agni, the fire sacrifice. Srinkam, the necklace. Cha means and, Imam means those. Anek Rupam, multi forms. Grihash, you take. Being delighted, the Mahatma, the Lord of Death, spoke to him, Nachiketa. What did he say? I grant now this additional boon. This fire sacrifice shall be named after you. And take this multi-formed necklace. So it's like a giving something to his student, the disciple, as a gift. So Lord of Death is offering to his disciple, it's almost like a medal of appreciation in the form of it could be a jeweled necklace, like a garland. See, there are two different meanings of this word Sri Kam is. Garland, or it could be an action which will yield many fruits, glorious fruits. Sri Kam. Okay, so either one will fit over here in this situation. So maybe he gave him a beautiful necklace or a garland. Okay, because he initiated his disciple into some more secret methods of fulfilling the desires of mankind. Because he was happy with the acute intelligence of this young boy. And even the extraordinary retentive capacity also. Because the details must be quite a bit of details. How many bricks, which direction, what the shape? Because certain, if you ever get a chance to look at the Yajurved, you will see even a figures given over there. A circular Havan Kund, a rectangular, a square, a semicircular. There are all kinds of, for different purposes, different kind of altars are created. So he remembered exactly. That's why he said the number of bricks also. So all the details are in the Karam Kand. So intellectually, this young boy was capable of understanding and remembering. And then sometimes we remember, but we cannot tell back. But he could give it back, explain it to Yamraj. So all these three powers he had. So now let's look at verse number 17. Tri nachiketaha, tri bhi ete sandhim, tri karam krit, tartihi janam rityo, brahm jagyam devam idyam viditvaha, ni chache imam shantim atyantam etihi. Tri nachiketa, one who has performed Nachiketa fire. Okay. It could be 3 times. 3 Nachiketa. 3 bhi with the 3. Ete having attained. Sandhim union. 3 means 3. Karam Krit, one who has performed the duties. Tarati, crosses, Janam Mrityu, birth and death. Brahma Jagyam, form of Brahma. Devam, right. Idiom, adorable. Viditva, having understood. Ni Shachya, realizing. Imam, this. Shantim, peace. Atyantam, everlasting. Eti, attains. Whoever performs 3 times this sacrifice of Nachiketa's fire, because this yajna is named after Nachiketa now. So Nachiketa yajna, and has been united with the 3, has performed the 3 kinds of duties, overcomes birth and death. When he has understood this adorable, bright, omniscient fire, born of Brahm, and realized him, then he attains everlasting peace. So this is the literal translation of this mantra. So 3-fold Nachiketa fire. It can definitely mean the 3 times. Because sometimes we do things in 3 times just to solidify that action. It may also mean that a person has learned it, he knows it, and then he performs it. Not just mechanically performing it, but with a full knowledge performing it. See, there's a difference. So learning, knowing, and performing this Nachiketa fire, that could mean 3. And since Nachiketa fire seems to be a form of Agnihotra, the 3 may also mean there are 3 different kinds of fire. Maybe some other day I'll talk about it. This is like a Grahapatya fire, Ahavanya fire, and a Dakshina fire. These are like a technical terms for the fire. So it could mean that you have done that with all these 3 different ways. And united with the 3. Tribhi ete sandhim. Again, it could mean one who has the 3 great influences. Father, mother, and guru. These are the 3 great personalities in our human life which make a big impact on our life. So anybody who has these 3 great forces of blessings, who has been obedient to these 3, who has reverence for all these 3, will come to claim their blessings. Matrivan, Pitrivan, Acharyavan. Very important. 3 may refer to the 3 sources of knowledge. We know that there is a knowledge, the correct knowledge is called Praman. There is a Pratyaksh Praman, there is a Anuman Praman, and there is a Agam Praman. Pratyaksh Praman is the direct experience. You experience it with your senses. You have seen it with your eyes, or you can hear it with your ears. You have smelled it, or you touched it, or you tasted it. Pratyaksh. Anuman is you infer it. But still your inference is so strong, you know that it's a correct knowledge. And the third is Agam. Agam is the words of the wise, the words of the scriptures, the words of our Guru. Agam. These are all correct. So this 3 could mean that also. It could be 3 ways also, through the Vedas, through the Samritis, and through the wise person. and 3 duties. That is a 3 karam krit, 3 duties. Chanting of the Vedas, the yajnas, the sacrifices which we need to do every day, the prayers. And then there's a charity. Okay? These are all karam, su karam. We all need to do. Even Lord Krishna said that these karam, they will purify even the wise one. So he's mentioning that over here. These are the duties. Those who can afford to act up to all the above instructions, there are a lot of instructions in this verse, shall come to enjoy the comparative peace, a rest from the whirl of life and death, and will realize the fire as the self. Brahma Jagyam, that is just a name of the fire, the knower of what is Brahma. Because who knows what Brahma is? Can this intellect know what Brahma is? Can this mind know, the ego know what Brahma is? Only the Atma can know what Brahma is, because Atma is a part of Brahma. Let me read it again to see whether you have gotten the deeper implication of this verse or not. Whoever performs 3 times the sacrifice of Nachiketa fire and has been united with the 3, has performed the 3 kinds of duties. So it's not only just doing the physical act of the yajnas, but living a life based upon these truths, overcomes birth and death. When he has understood this adorable, bright, omniscient fire born of Brahm and realized him, then he attains everlasting peace. So this is being said by Yamaraj to this young boy in order to give him the second boon. Second boon. So we'll start with the verse number 18 next week. So go back to these verses because there's a lot of deep message in these verses. Upanishads can never be read just like a storybook, even though it starts out as a story, but message is very deep. That's why this is part of the Gyan Kand. Okay, it's not a Samriti, it's not a secondary scripture, it's not a itihas, it is a Gyan Kand. So profound knowledge is in there. So spend some time contemplating on these verses. See, what do you get out of it? Don't take my word for it. You try to understand it. See, that's the reason I give you word by word meaning also, so that what do you draw from this particular verse? Okay, so let's stop it here and then we'll start from verse number 18 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, any question, comment before we go